Hi everyone, I am Nightshifter and today we're gonna learn how to make our opponents uninstall the game. Let's get into it. First things first, let's look at his frame data. 5L minus 2, 5LL also minus 2, 2L 0 on block. These three are going to be the main buttons you'll use for Z Broly's pressure. The reason why you want to stick to light buttons as much as possible is because 5M is minus 11, and so is 2M, and so is 5H, and 5S is minus 9. So everything past lights is very punishable. Z Broly's safe gapless block string essentially stops his 5LL, because everything after it either leaves a gap or is just unsafe on block. Once he goes past his mediums, he has two options. He can go into 236S, which is minus 5 and spaces out the opponent considerably, but leaves a gap, as you can see. Or alternatively, he can go into 236L, which will be gapless, however this is minus 9 on block. So you preferably want to call an assist after it, to keep your turn. If you don't have an assist, the best thing you can do after 236L is to just vanish. The opponent doesn't have quite enough time to 2H you. However, there is still a gap, so they can reflect. You'll still be safe mid-screen, but if you try to do this in the corner, that's going to be a free medium starter for them. Should also mention that 5H is not gapless. It will always leave a tiny gap that will catch opponents jumping out or trying to mash. So it's useful against people who are scared of a certain something. But remember that if you use it too often, you risk getting reversals, as you will see here. Exactly because it leaves a gap. Now let's finally go into his pressure. His lights have really good block stun and huge cancel windows, which means if he wants to frame trap, he can do it with ease. I'm frame trapping jumping here like it's no problem because his frame trap windows are very lenient, so I'm sure you can get it down too within like a few tries. Mess around with it. The cool thing about Broly though is that he can make it ambiguous whether or not he will frame trap. For instance, that's a frame trap and that's a true string. That's a true string and that's a frame trap. It's hard to tell the difference. Now we can develop that idea of ambiguity more and get away with things like this. Part of that didn't really string at all, it was technically mashable. But would you want to mash on him there? No. Why? Instead of resetting into 2L like I did earlier, I could have just done this. Frame trapped with 5LL and killed you. This is what I mean about ambiguity. You make your opponents unsure of what you're going to do, so they have to think about it from a risk-reward standpoint. They think you're going to frame trap them. You instill that fear in them first, and then once you know that they're going to respect you, you can go for resetting your string altogether, so you just get another chance to open them up for free. This is what we call abusing respect. All of this is complemented by his great frame data, which allows him to dash block in the middle of his pressure like this. You might have noticed that even though the bot is set to counterattack immediately, I got to sneak in a little dash before blocking. This only works because of Broly's great frame data on his lights. Take a shot every time I say that. Because they're minus 2 or better, he gets a small window in which he is able to dash and still block in time. This is easiest to do after 2L because it's got the best frame advantage out of the three. It can be still difficult to do, even for me, I still mess it up. But once you get this down, your Broly can become a lot more of a threat. Good lord, this is hard on actual frame delay. There we go. The reason why this is useful is because Broly can accidentally space himself out pretty easily. For example, he already can't reach the opponent with his lights anymore, but if you implement dash blocking here, this suddenly becomes a non-issue, because you get a safe way to get yourself right back in their face. You're able to block if you do it correctly, and if they respect you, well, you know, you get to have fun again. The cool thing about dash blocking is that not only is it safe against mashing, but it can also be perfectly safe against reversals, as you can see. And another cool thing about it is that it can just bait reflect pretty much. That's a punish right there. And it's a free punish because even if they didn't reflect, I would have been perfectly safe against anything else they may try to do. Important thing to note though, you basically only need to dash block after 5L 2L or 2L 5L. If you go into 5LL, it moves him really far forward, so there's no longer any need to dash to cover space. And it's also -2, so after 5LL you can instead kinda just hold back for a brief moment before pressing your reset button, and you'll still be perfectly safe. Worth noting that point blank you can do 2L 5L 2L, but if you try to go into 5L instead there, it'll just whiff. This is not only against small characters either, as you can see. Buff Broly 5L please. Another funny thing about Broly pressure is that not only can they not mash out of it, they also can't jump. So they kinda have to hold this. Because of how big Broly's buttons are and because of how good the frame advantage on them is, they can kinda just catch jumping outright. And funnily enough, if they air block 5LL, your next 5LL will frame trap their jump, so have fun. The only situation where this isn't really the case is if you decide to dash block. Because of course, dash blocking leaves a little more of a gap than just, you know, doing this. However, there's another way to discourage things like jumping out, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Now, I know I might have said that going with light as much as possible is a good idea, but sometimes adding in a 2M can be a good idea, because it covers a surprising amount of options. The gist of it is basically this. A true string 2M will beat the opponent holding up back during your pressure, it will beat them trying to mash reflect, and it will beat them trying to mash reversals. A frame trap 2M meanwhile will, well, frame trap, so it will discourage them from mashing. Another thing about 2M is that despite how unsafe it is, it spaces out very well, so as you saw there, Goku couldn't reach me with his 2L to punish me. This applies against most characters, the 2M will space them out just right. However, again, because of how minus on block it is, you won't quite be able to punish their punish. Still quite nice to have though. Notice how I said this applies to most characters though. Some characters have big enough light buttons that they'll actually reach you. Examples would be Gogeta Blue here, Jiren, Vegito, Broly himself, Labcoat, and UI Goku. If you want to be safe against them, your string should be 5L, 2L, 2M, 5S. Anything else will leave you too close to them. If you go into, let's say, 5LL, 2M, 5S, the 5LL will push you too far forward. So, yeah, stick to 5L, 2L against these big button fuckers specifically. One more thing to mention about his basic pressure. If you at any point feel kind of uncomfortable pressuring your opponent, you can backdash after any light button safely. Now we have fully covered the fundamentals of his pressure. We can now move on to adding more stuff to fuck our opponent over with. For example, good old 6M. Not many people are going to expect 6M from Broly here, since you know his main thing is this. So do make sure to add in a 6M once in a while, it will definitely catch people. A cool thing Broly can do is he can space out his 6M like this. And that is a solo off of a 6M because I got it to hit meaty enough. Kind of hard to space it out so that it combos solo, but it's pretty consistent just doing it as is. That is +0. All you need to do is delay the 2L slightly here. +5 there, that's the best it can get. So that's a neat little thing he can do. Next up, Dragon Rush. I know he has the command grabs and all, but you need to keep in mind that command grabs more use up resources than they actually build them, mid-screen at least, so Dragon Rush is going to not only give him pretty decent reward, but it's also going to build like a little over 1.5 bars for him, which is always good because this character spends. So yeah, Dragon Rush, worth using sometimes. He also gets a really dirty setup into it in the corner. In the corner, after any combo that you end in J2H, you can just 2 on 4S, air dash JH, and then the Dragon Rush will be practically invisible because of the barrier. Since you know, Dragon Rush also has a bit of a greenish flash. So this is dirty as fuck, make use of it. One more thing, don't forget to add crossups. With Broly in particular, you use JM. You can also do a little bit of a fake crossup by doing this. Just jump up into JS while holding up. It's more consistent after actually pressing buttons beforehand. Useful to keep in mind if you ask me. Now let's quickly cover the grabs. Light grab is unreactable. If the opponent ever jumps out of it, it's cause they got lucky. 5L 2L will space out the grab too much for it to reach unless you have dash momentum. In which case it will reach just fine. Otherwise you can use it at any point in your block string. You need to remember to delay it or it won't connect, as you can see here. You must wait for the opponent to exit block stun before it comes out. By itself, the reward from light grab is pretty small because you cannot combo after it no matter what. Your only option after it is to meter dump. However, when it comes to supers, the grab scales pretty damn well. Into level 1, it will take like 30% of their health, or in the corner, while using the uppercut one, 34%. After level 3, it will take away pretty much half their health, and they're suddenly in a guess for character scenario. So if you have meter, this grab is great. If not, the reward isn't the best. Medium and heavy grabs start up in 24 frames, making them reactable. Keep in mind though that this won't really matter against the average player. So you're free to use them at your leisure basically. Medium grab mid-screen, you can basically only vanish confirm it, but in the corner you can combo off it for free. Just like that. Heavy grab on the other hand is comboable anywhere on the screen for no further resources, if you don't drop it like I did there. Okay, come on now. There we go. Medium grab has a little more range than light grab, making it work in situations where light wouldn't. Like here for example. Light grab would definitely not have reached there. However, heavy grab is the breadwinner in terms of range. Medium doesn't reach. Heavy does. That concludes my guide on pressuring people with the Broly. I hope you have success in making as many people rage quit and delete their game as possible with this newfound knowledge. See you next time and take care.